This is All Out Politics, news, debate and opinion from the heart of Westminster. Well, there's a lot of political turbulence around. Israel is going to hold its second election in a year after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu failed to form a coalition government in time. So what are the implications of this? Can Mr. Netanyahu carry on? And what does political chaos in Israel mean for the prospects of any peace or negotiations in the Middle East? To join me to discuss that, I'm joined by Yossi Mekelberg, who's the head of international relations at Regent's University and a fellow of Chatham House. And from Tel Aviv, we're joined by the writer and speaker and former Israeli Defense Forces officer Hen Mazzig. Thank you very much indeed, both of you, for joining me. What do you think the implications are of this continued political uncertainty in Israel?
Well, this is unprecedented in Israeli history. This Knesset lasted 30 days exactly since it was sworn. It will limp on for another few months until the 17th of September, where there are new elections. But the main issue is that one prime minister, one politician hijacked the entire political system for his own purposes. Not only he wants to survive in power, he wants also to survive out of court, an allegation of corruption. And you ask if he can stay in power. He might be able to stay in power, but I don't think he should.
You're saying it would have been possible to form a government?
Well, between now and September, it's an interim government until the new election.
But it wasn't necessary to have
I think it's for the voter to decide. They saw all the shenanigans with trying to form a government. He corrupted the system completely. His readiness one day to form a coalition with the very right, and in the last minute to offer the Labour Party four ministries, including the defense ministries, which is the most important one, just for them to join him. He lacks any values, any ideas, and any ideology. It's all about him. And now it's for the voters is to decide, is that what they want? And furthermore, I think that for the Likud party is really reassess. They can say, thank you very much, Mr. Netanyahu. You served us well for 10 years, but it's time for a change. But it will take a courageous politician within the Likud party to do so.
So, Mr. Mazzig, the charge is that Mr. Netanyahu is manipulating the political system, almost corrupting it for his own purposes, not for the benefit of Israel.
He's being a politician, so I think that's true. And the fact is that there's still no one else that could rise to the challenge and replace him. And Israeli voters, 2.5 million of them, have decided to vote for him again. So he's doing what he needs to do to win another election, and he did it since I was much younger. I don't even remember another politician, and that's something that another prime minister, and that's something that many Israelis share. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think that Netanyahu is a great politician, and he did contribute a lot to Israel economy, to our security, and to the international relations. So we can't take that away. And quite frankly, I don't think that there is right now any other viable leadership that could replace him in the Israeli Knesset.
I mean, you don't think it's just a question, as does happen, that he's reached his sell-by date and that it would be better to see if there's another alternative leader? He's had a good go, perhaps.
Yeah, I wish that there was someone else that could have replaced him. But looking at the candidates today and the options that we have, even Gantz, the leader of Blue and White, was not able to win either side of the either Lieberman or the Orthodox. Both have said yesterday that they would not join his coalition, and that's those two parties that are fighting against each other can still agree that Netanyahu is the only one that they're going to go with, and I think that's the secret of his success.
Ms. Mazzig, I mean, Ms. Mekelberg, do you think this is going to hold together between now and September, or do you think, as people look at the situation, that Mr. Netanyahu might start losing some of the strong body of opinion which he has behind him in Israel?
I think this is the task of the opposition, actually, to expose what happened in the last few weeks and even before. I'm actually surprised for a young man to say that, there is no politician beyond the one. 2.5 million, 60 million voted for Trump, 17 million voted for Brexit. Neither proved to be a great successes thus far. We need to look beyond the now and here, and actually Israel to think, can he has an answer for the most pertinent question that Israel is facing, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the relation with the Palestinians? Does he have an answer to the growing gap between rich and poor in this? Can Israel live with this ongoing corruption at the heart of government? I think actually this for young people to go and say, we should take now the harness. We should lead the country and find alternative leadership, because not only 10 years, in 20 years, in the last 20 years, Netanyahu almost dominated Israel politics, and it's time to move on.
Do you think, Mr. Mazzig, that Mr. Netanyahu's leadership has been good for peace in the Middle East?
I think that Israeli voters care about security, they care about international relations, and they care about economy. And those three issues, from the Iran deal that was canceled since 2015, and Netanyahu spoke at the Congress, was a pivotal part of why this deal was broken, and that was something that Israelis cared about a lot. Relationships with African countries, with new diplomatic relationship with Kazakhstan, with Turkmenistan, with Saudi Arabia. And at the end of the day, I think that we are looking to the world, and we're looking to China, we're looking to India, we're looking to Russia, we're looking to the US, and we're looking at Nigel Farage in the EU, and we understand where the world is going. So we are an 0.03% of the Middle East. We are a small country, and we have security threats since the day we were established. So we do hope to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We've been hoping for it since 1967 and since Oslo, but at the end of the day, I think we care about our lives, and we care about where the world is going, and we're looking at the world, and the world is leading by example. And the first thing that Netanyahu did after his speech yesterday, the first thing that he did in his speech yesterday was to show a map of the Golan Heights signed by Trump, saying nice. And I think Israelis are looking at it, and we understand that the biggest superpower in the world, the US, are friendly and supporting of Netanyahu, and Russia as well, and China as well. So I think that this is something we take into account.
Well, that's a good point, isn't it? That he may not be particularly nice, but he's looked after the security of Israel, and he's got these powerful allies, above all Donald Trump.
Well, it's a reflection of the world that we live right now, which is fragmented and led by populists, and we saw it also in the European election to an extent, but yes, with Putin and Trump. But it doesn't mean that Israel has to follow this trend. Again, it's a very limited approach to security, to think that security is based only on blockading Gaza and entrenching the occupation of the West Bank. Again, it always astonishes me that young people don't think about, what about peace? What if actually removing some of the restriction on the West Bank, creating some economic activity there, empowering the people in the West Bank and in Gaza, and reaching out for them for peace, instead of the idea that oppressing people is the only way for security. I think it's a very poor reflection of Israeli politics right now.
Just want to ask you both quickly what you make of the allegations by a member of the Labour's National Executive that the Israeli embassy, the Israeli government, has been stirring up the anti-Semitism charges against the Labour Party.
Again, I don't know. I'm not privy to conversation of the Israeli embassy about that. Well, they might have a private word here and there about the Labour Party, but I think the Labour Party and Corbyn, when it comes to anti-Semitism, as in many other issues, are the worst enemies right now of the Labour Party.
What do you think, Mr. Mazzig?
I think that it is true that anti-Semitism is rising all over the world, and I think that the fact that 85% of British Jews consider Jeremy Corbyn to be an anti-Semite should be enough to say, okay, this community clearly identified this as a threat to us, and it's enough, just like it would be for any other minority community. So I think it's important to listen to this minority community as we are facing an impossible threat.
Thank you both very much indeed. This is All Up Politics. Coming up next.